hell is empty, and all the devils are here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Devil's Library, our podcast where we talk about books that we like, maybe don't like. Today we are doing another of our minisodes. We call it minisodes, even though they usually last an hour. So it is only me. My name is Ligeia, hail Satan, and my dear friend Leraje.
Hail Satan.
Yeah, so today we are going to continue with the book we already talked about. It was written by Susanna Clarke, very famous author. And it's a tiny book of stories. It's called The Ladies of Grace Adieu. And so we chose three different stories. Like the first time we do just one episode, I think. We only did one.
Yeah, this is the second one.
This is the second. So you can go back and listen to the first episode, because that was, like, for me, that was my first read of those three stories. So maybe if you want to just like have the the fresh start to this, maybe go back and listen to that. You don't have to. They don't follow any. There is no continuation. They are just separate stories. So whatever you want. So we have three stories. We do it in a way like I choose one, Leraje chooses one, and then we like randomly choose the third one. So I chose Mrs. Mab.
Yeah.
I forgot which one then you chose.
I chose Tom Brightwind, or How the Fairy Bridge Was Built at Thorsby.
And then the third one was, hold on, what is the whole name? Mr. Simonelli, or The Fairy Widower. Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Should we start with Mrs. Mab?
We can. I think it's like the chronological order in the book.
We'll do that.
There was no reason why I chose this one. Probably because it was like a Mrs. and not a male name. I don't know. I was just curious. I must say these three stories are very different from the three first ones. I can't even explain how. I did like these more. All three of these, I did.
Right.
I found them a little bit more complex, or I think if I will go back to these, but as a first read, I think I am tempted to read them again.
The first three that we read, they felt like kind of like myths or tales from ancient, but these feel more like stories, kind of like modern stories. I mean, they're not modern because they're set in kind of like Victorian, well, before Victorian England, but that sort of time period.
Yeah, in I think it was only in the last story, about the Tom Brightwind, there was actually like years, like we know in which years this was happening. But yes, as you were saying, I think these three stories sounded like, obviously Susanna wrote all these stories, but the first three ones sounded more like they were quite heavily inspired by the folk tales that you might have heard before. She slightly changed it, or she changed it a lot, but that was like more. But it's funny because, as I'm saying, we choose them not chronologically. No, we choose them. I don't know. Just how did we do that? I don't know. It was
skill.
Really skill. Yeah, talking about skill, and my choice for the last episode was. Yes.
He talked about Licorice Hill again.
Yes. The English killed me. Thank you.
None of that this time.
No. Okay, so let's talk about Mrs. Mab. So basically this story is about, in my head, she was a young girl or young woman. Venetia, or how do you read that? Venetia Moore. She became convinced that her lover, Captain Fox, like they were in love, everything was amazing, and she was actually expecting that they will be like engaged and there will be a wedding, and bright, beautiful, happy future with this man.
Mm.
And suddenly her lover somehow has fallen under a spell, if I can say it like that, of this mysterious Mrs. Mabb.
Yeah.
Almost the entire story, we don't really know if this Mrs. Mabb exists, if what is happening, because this young girl, she's going through a lot of weird happenings, physical happenings, that like she is getting lost.
Yeah.
She has visions. She is being found like in a ditch or something. Her dress is disheveled. She loses her shoes. She's hurt. She has bruises, and nobody is seeing what she is seeing.
No, it's what they used to call the glamour of the fairies.
Yeah.
Fairies traditionally avoid using the word magic. It's that glamour. They use a glamour to hide themselves.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's interesting, though, because Mrs. Mabb, for whom the story is titled, never actually appears in the first person throughout the whole story.
It is so weird because, well, there are mentions of her. Like, obviously, she goes and she wants to see her. She wants to see... She learns from people that this lover, Captain Fox, lives with this Mrs. Mapp in her house. And like, she should forget about him, and like, that's done because, oh, it's Mrs. Mapp. You can't like compare yourself. This is like, oh, girl, forget about that. So we are learning that she is something, I don't know, better, or she is more beautiful. She is like out of this world. She has a beautiful house. She has like maids and servants, and like the whole world should just worship her. And she wants to see the house. She's like really suffering. She's hurt. So she goes and she asks like, okay, so where does she live? Where is the house of this Mrs. Mabb? What if I just go for a walk and just like look? And I would do the same, actually. I understood her so much, like, oh my God, this is not good for you. But also, yeah, I would.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that nobody gives her the same answer when she asks her where Mrs. Mabb lives.
Right?
Everybody's sure they know where she lives.
Yeah.
But only because they've heard someone else say it. And they all give different answers. None of them have actually been there themselves.
No. Do you think it was because they didn't know? I thought maybe it's one of those things that is like the magic, actually, like it messes their brains. Like,
I think that's what it is.
Like the story changes because
it's part of I think it's part of the kind of like the glamour, the magic that Mrs. Mabb puts out, this kind of like,
right.
Oh yeah, I know where Mrs. Mabb lives. Somebody told me she lives, oh no, let me remember. You got to walk down the bridle path, then you got to turn right, then you got to, and you get all these complex instructions, and then you go there and it's like, there's nothing there. Or you get turned around, or something happens, like, in Venetia's case, you imagine a troop of cavalry or something like that.
That's the thing, like, she actually follows these like directions, these instructions. And it's not like she doesn't find anything. She actually sees what they told her. And it's so weird because it's usually like a really like a spot where nothing else is. Like it's a field. It's a huge like field of grass, and the grass is so tall. And the house looks like a tower, which is both tiny and huge. I'm like, what? What are we doing?
It's huge, but Venetia also thinks to herself, but it also looks very small, like as if it's made for a bumblebee or a...
Right, it's miniature and it's huge. Really, I was so looking forward to the ending because, you know, it is written in a way, I think, that it's supposed to make you feel like she has lost her mind, or she's suffering, like there is something really wrong happening in her head, and maybe it's the grief. Also, I mean, she really didn't hear from him, like, okay, I'm finishing this with you and I want to be with this other woman. Maybe that would have helped.
Yeah.
But he just disappeared, and she was like, I don't understand. I want to know.
She lost, I mean, not only that, but at the very start of the story, the reason she loses Captain Fox in the first place is because she has to go away to tend to a dying friend.
Right, yes.
And her friend dies and she has to come back. So she's already had this massive loss in her life, and then she comes back and finds that her intended has been also left her.
Yeah.
So, it all adds to this. Yeah, her sister her sister is convinced that she's lost her mind. And bless her. Fanny Hawkins, she's obviously in there for a bit of humour. But she obviously loves her sister and wants what's good for her. But she just cannot. She doesn't believe a word that Venetia is saying.
No, she really thinks like she needs help. She's sick. She's ill. She was getting ready for her return from the dying friend, and she was like, "Oh, so when she comes home, I'm gonna talk to her about like, why would you leave when you have this prospect of this insanely great marriage? You are so silly. You shouldn't have left. I will tell her. I will talk to her. You will see. I will punish her." And then she comes and she looks so sad that she actually can't even tell her anything. She's like, "Oh my goodness. Come here, I will take care of you." That was so sweet.
Yes.
You're right. What a lovely sister. Also, one more thing, that when you mentioned how the directions were given, I had this really nice and warm feeling in my heart when I was reading it. Like, I guess there are still places like this in the world, but where I live, everything is just like, so everything is just like buildings and roads and this was so adorable how they were describing, like, there is this big hedge and you will see 2 trees and then there is a lilac bush. And I'm like, oh my God, I would never find anything, because what do you mean? And like all these people knew all these plants, like they would tell you 15 different plants and you just find your way because you all know what these are. Like, oh my goodness. What a sweet world.
The other coincidence between these 3 stories is they're all set in the kind of like the East Midlands. So it's all kind of like Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire and those kind of areas.
Yeah.
I think people of those times and people who were kind of like country people probably would have known.
Yes. I'm not saying this is weird. It was just something that caught my eye. I was actually really jealous of that. Like, oh my goodness, how sweet.
Her descriptive powers are massive, Susanna Clarke's. She really evokes this whole... It feels...
The balance.
Yeah.
Right?
When Venetia goes... At 3 points, she goes out to seek Mrs. Mabb's house.
Yes.
And each one feels like a dream of old, ancient England with kind of like all the greenery and the stones and the kind of like the trees. And it's a wonderful atmosphere she manages to evoke.
Right? It was so lovely. I could absolutely like close my eyes and smell the grass and the fields, the meadows, and I was like, fuck the captain. I would just go for these walks. Hi.
Yeah.
But obviously I would be curious about this Mrs. Mabb just because what those people were saying sounded a little bit like too much. Like, what do you mean? She's this mysterious woman who has servants here. Why is she here? Why is she at the end of that garden? That doesn't make any sense.
So, do you know why she's called Mrs. Mabb?
No.
Mabb, with 1 B, is the daughter of Titania, the Queen of the Fairies, in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, okay. So she just added another B.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, okay. Because is this like a weird name?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. My knowledge of Shakespeare is not great, I have to admit so.
So in Romeo and Juliet, I think it's, God, I'm probably going to get this wrong, and if I do, I apologise to people who know Shakespeare better than me. But I think it's Mercutio who describes Mabb as the fairy midwife, the midwife of the fairies, and she's supposed to be a small, sort of Tinkerbell-sized fairy.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Hence all the kind of like butterfly analogies.
Yeah, the last, I don't want to say
the
it,
battle.
but like, the butterflies. I was actually laughing Also, I was sorry for the butterflies, but I'm like, what? Who comes up? Okay, so now I understand there was like the inspiration was there. But still, what a lovely story. And it had okay, I will not say what ending. I will not say it.
No, but it's, oh, fuck it, I'm going to say it. Sorry.
We can do what we want.
We do what we want. Venetia pursues Mrs. Mab to the point where Mrs. Mab grows pale and distracted at the thought of continuing the battle and releases Captain Fox. And it turns out that Captain Fox thinks he's only been there for, a few hours, an afternoon, something like that?
Yeah, and the reason why she releases him was so funny as well. All the dead, I don't know, insects or whatever.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, it's costing me, like, my
servants.
Not army, but servants, and like,
yeah.
Okay. It's like, he is not worth all this loss. It's just... like,
so she lets Captain Fox go, and he can't figure out why it's suddenly like the middle of summer or whatever.
Yes, the trees have changed, everything is weird, and
yeah,
what a lovely story, really.
It was very good.
It was amazing. And I had one more, like the 3 stories we did last time. I thought they had this element of like I will say feminism because I don't know what other word, or like she was
making a point.
Yes, with like the respect towards like women and magic. I want to know your opinion about the other 2 stories we are gonna do, but like in this one, I think I still was able to find a little bit of that. And what I mean by that is that through the story, Venetia, her like character was described, so we would think, and everybody around her would think, that she's a little bit hysterical, but at the end, and when you look back, she actually had a better grasp on what was happening than anybody else, because
she knew she was right and she stuck to her guns,
right?
Basically, yeah.
So I found that really interesting and very subtle way of like, yes, sometimes women are called hysterical, or even men or whatever. It's like the way they behave is hysterical, which I don't see as a bad thing. Not always is helpful, but it's usually as a negative, And in this story, I think it was actually like, oh, at the end you will see why. And she was right.
If someone is certain in their opinion, then somebody else saying, well, that's hysterical behaviour is just their way of looking at it. From the point of view of the person who thinks they're right, it's not hysterical, it's simply conviction. They're convinced they're right.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your opinion on the silent Mr. Hawkins, the Reverend Hawkins, Fanny's husband.
Ooh,
because
I'm not even sure. What, you want to say something?
Well, it's kind of like the man is silent through the whole... When she first goes off, she wakes up to find Fanny clucking about her and asking her if she's all right. And Mr. Hawkins first washes her feet, then washes her hands. Same with the second time. The third time, when when everyone is trying their best to keep her in, Mr. Hawkins gives her very precise map of exactly where to find Mrs. Mab. He says nothing throughout the entire... I mean, there are no words.
That is true.
And I was left kind of like, who is this guy? Because he knew exactly the right thing to do the first 2 times that Venetia hurt herself.
You know what? Is it possible that he has been through a similar thing?
That was my opinion too.
But now I'm thinking about him, I completely ignored him.
Well, he says nothing, so he's so easy to miss. Yeah,
I even forgot. But now you mentioned him, I'm like, yeah, he was washing her feet, which is also quite like, why was it him? Isn't that a little bit like, would it not be her sister? Because like, why would he be touching her?
It's very intimate, especially for people of that kind of like time period. It would have been a very intimate act. But he is a reverend, so possibly above reproach in society's eyes. And I thought when I first read that bit, the first time that I read these stories, not this time, I thought she was playing on a kind of like allegory of Jesus washing the feet of, who was it? Was it Mary Magdalene?
Mary Magdalene, yes.
So I thought maybe there was an allegory. for that.
But like, what would that mean?
Don't know.
What would that mean? Taking her sins away? Wow.
Maybe. I did kind of abandon the idea once it became clear what was going on. But yeah, he's a mystery, that man.
He very much. But this is what I think. But then if he has been through this and he has been to Mrs. Mab, maybe she's like tempting all these men. Wouldn't that sister remember that? Or would that make sense?
You're right.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But this is why I love her stories. It's never like an easy explanation.
No, there's always a question mark or two at the end. Purposefully, not through loose storytelling, but purposefully.
Yeah, okay. Let's go to your story now.
My choice was Tom Brightwind or How the Ferry Bridge Was Built at Thoresby. What did you think of this one?
What did I think? I was confused at the beginning. I must say, like, at the beginning, there is a lot of notes, like under, what do you call them? Yes, footnotes. And I was like, where are these coming from? There are never, like, in this book, no footnotes. And now there are, like, huge footnotes. I'm like, what happened? What are we? And also, I had to read the names of the princesses to my daughter.
Good, aren't they?
I couldn't stop laughing. Do you remember those names?
Princess Honey of the Wild Bees, Princess Lament from Across the Water, Princess Kiss Upon a True Love's Grave, and Princess Bird in the Hand. Now, they were all one set of sisters, and then there were the others, which were...
Princess Caritas, Princess Bellona, Princess Alba Perfecta, Princess Lacrima, and Princess Flamifera.
And they were all sisters too.
I don't know why I'm reading it in Italian. It's fine.
They do feel vaguely Italian.
But like, like the kiss upon a true lover's grave. What the hell? And they call her Kiss.
But she's never kissed anyone in her life, apparently, according to her sisters.
No. But this is at the beginning of the story, and like the description of like there's 9 of these young princesses in the room, 9 perfumes that are mixing together, 9 shades of beautiful like colors, their dresses. Like, what is this story? But I was smiling because I was like, oh, I want to be one of them. I was going back to my childhood, like, oh,
fairy princess.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yes. I wanted to be like in this dress and everything.
And we should say that they are the granddaughters of Tom Brightwind, who is the fairy lord named in the story. Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved this story, but at the beginning, like because of all of this, it was confusing. Like, where's this going to go? I really need to know. But it was your story, so maybe you can tell, like, I don't know.
So, the premise of the story is that David Montefiore is a physician, and he is friends with Tom Brightwind, who is a fairy. David goes to visit Tom at his house, has the encounter with the 9 fairy princesses, and then they ostensibly go on a journey to see one of David's patients who lives in Lincoln. So it's a journey for them from London to Lincoln. I think it's London that they started at. Along the way, they stop off at a town called Thoresby, and they don't know how to proceed because there's no bridge over the river. And then they notice that there is actually a ferry, and they pay to go across. But then they are told that not only do they have to pay the ferryman's fee, they also have to pay a toll. And they are outraged at this situation. They are told this by a man called Pewley Wits, who is described as looking something like a scoundrel.
The description of his face was amazing.
And they refuse to pay, so Mr. Wits says, well, I think you need to come and speak to Mr. Winstanley, who is kind of like the person in charge of taking tolls. So they go to the Winstanley's house, and they meet Mr. and Mrs. Winstanley, who tell them the story of why there was never been a bridge built at Thoresby, although it's been promised at least 3 times. And Tom decides, after hearing the story, he and I think possibly seducing Mrs. Winstanley along the way, decides to build them a bridge. So he does build them a bridge, but he doesn't tell them where he's going to build it to. Mm-hmm. It turns out that the bridge doesn't necessarily go to the other side of the river. of the river that runs alongside Thorsby. Yeah, it's a good story, and it's very funny in places.
Yes, I found this very funny. Like, in all seriousness, how everything is described and how they talk and the topics. For example, how they went through all list of queens and kings who were supposed to build the bridge, and why they never built the bridge, or how there was a lot of space on the wall where this guy
for future people who disappointed them.
Yes, it's like really looking at that, like, yeah, it should have been a different story. I would like to have those pictures here, but they never built the bridge. And how these people actually didn't want to do anything.
No, they wouldn't do it themselves.
They wouldn't plant anything that could grow and they could sell. No, they just didn't do anything, and I found it so funny.
The bit that made me laugh out loud was early on in the story. We are told that Tom Brightwind, the fairy, is ridiculously good looking. I mean, so handsome, it's almost silly. Just a beautiful man. And when they all first go to knock on the Winstanley's door, the door is answered by the maid, who can't stop looking, sort of staring at Tom. And then she goes off to tell Mr. and Mrs. Winstanley they've got a guest, and you can hear her voice saying, "Oh, I saw the most beautiful man." And Tom says to David, "What's happening?" And David says, "The maid is describing me to her."
I almost died. Is he joking? Is he jealous, or he really thought? I think he really thought.
Oh dear.
And Tom, he was like, okay.
Tom didn't care.
And he continued looking at the lions, the stone lions.
Tiny stone lions.
He's like, yeah. Oh my goodness. It was such a fun
It was
story.
very funny.
I mean, the way she wrote it was so good.
My descriptions do not do it justice. It's
No. It's very good. And also how I think one of the themes in this story was how different is the experience of life for a fairy. How actually a fairy can't really make any deep connections. There is this sort of not belonging anywhere because they have lived for thousands and thousands of years. They have so many children and grandchildren, and they actually kidnap kids, and they forget they kidnapped them, and they're like, "Why are you here? Who are you? I don't care." Like, specifically, Tom had so many kids, like these daughters, and this guy was asking him, like, "Why don't you take care of them? You should give them some purpose, like make them study something or get good at something." And he's like, "Why should I care? I don't really, they're annoying me. Oh, I have one well, actually, I also can't stop talking, but that's different.
I'm allowed to because I'm fairy lord.
So he sends them away because they're constantly talking. And he's like...
When we first meet Tom in person and he comes into the room where David is talking to the princesses, Tom's first words are, "God, there's a lot of women in this room." Whereupon they all silently stand up and walk out.
Just walk out.
Because they don't want to be banished to some fairy hell or something, I guess.
Here we go again. He's here. Okay, girls. So it was just sort of sad that being a fairy is actually quite empty life, or can we call it a life, existence? So she's very subtle about these things, but actually you can make these, I don't know, connections between what's happening, because it's never a whole paragraph about, "Oh, so a life of a fairy is so sad." Actually, he is very pretty.
Yeah.
And he can make all this
But I
happen.
don't think he's even aware of it. I think he just kind of accepts it as a kind of well, yeah.
I don't think he's bothered anymore.
One of my favourite bits in that story in terms of descriptive passages is the bit where they actually build the bridge and Tom uses his magic to summon an architect from Cambridge, and all these people from all over the country, and they're kind of like, they're all in their bed in their own homes, and like the next thing they're like, what the fuck am I doing in like just outside this small town outside of Nottingham, building a bridge? And they never question it. It's like they just go ahead and do it.
Yes, and everything was blooming, like even their windows, like because it was like wooden frames, the wood starts to like getting like swollen, and it's like what was it, a sap? Like a lot of sap was dripping.
Yeah, that's right. David notices one of the trees and he says, blimey, that tree's good. Oh, an apple tree in June? Hang on a minute, that's a horse chestnut tree. Why is it sprouting apples at all? And it's like there's all this life just pulsing through the whole thing.
And life that doesn't make sense, as you say, like a cherry tree would bring apples, then there were oranges and figs and pomegranate or whatever. It's like nothing makes any sense, but it's pretty. And I think
it gives a sense that fairy magic is not very well controlled and it's fairly chaotic. It's kind of like Tom just kind of like dumps this load of magic and it just does its thing and it doesn't really stop to think about the effects. It does the thing that he wants to happen, but it also has all these unintended consequences as well.
You know what it reminds me of? The Asterix and Obelix.
Yeah.
You know, the potion they were drinking. Like, if you overdo it, like it would go just like poof.
God, yeah. That's a long time since I've read those books.
Right. Yeah, but like some details you will never forget. And I don't know. This is what I saw in my head. But what do you make of the child that was born by Mrs. Winstanley? Because she couldn't have kids with her husband.
I think its last name is quite rightly going to be Brightwind, not Winstanley. But,
But did you see any connection between probably him seducing her and all that bloom? Like, do you think it was like at the same moment, or am I seeing
his magic fairy sperm?
Yeah, I mean,
could be,
yes,
could be, yeah.
This is what I saw again.
In my mind, it happened as a kind of thing of, all right, so I've fucked this man's wife. And I've got her pregnant, so she's now going to have a child. I'll give them something in return, and what I'll give them is this bridge.
Yeah, so they will shut up.
But I don't think the two things are necessarily, they don't contradict each other.
No.
But, it's a very, very funny story. It sounds awful. The way we've described it, they all sound like terrible people. And they are, apart from poor David. But
yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah. And Lucy probably. There was also this detail which I don't know if I understood. It was to the end of the story when everything was happening. And I think it was Lucy that made, and I don't know who, Mrs. Winstanley, were like trying to see over the fence, and they saw this golden boat with 3 angels, like little baby angels singing.
I think that was
I don't know.
Earlier I said that Tom kind of like just dumped this load of magic on. I think that was that. I think the angels were kind of like fairies, just kind of like singing this thing into existence, singing the magic into existence.
Oh, can you imagine?
I can't. Yeah, because I mean, it's an odd scene. It's almost religious. It's almost kind of like almost Christian, but not quite. Not quite. Yeah. If you'd read that story, just that bit of the story in the Bible, you would have said, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's a fairly typical biblical event." But
all right, yeah. Well, we have talking and burning bushes, giving you like the rules for your life.
Why not 3 singing cherubim or whatever they were?
Yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, some of the Bible stuff I would take, like changing water into wine. Come on. Say no more. Give it here.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, it was an amazing story. And one more detail, when you mentioned like there was this architect in Cambridge, there was the mention of Giambattista Piranesi.
I saw that. I meant to make a note of it and completely forgot.
Yeah. I was like, my eyes went out of my head, like, oh my goodness, Piranesi, there we go, there we go. Because he was an actual person, and he was doing these, what is it called in English? Imaginary prisons.
Yeah.
Which is mentioned in the story, because they were like, is it going to be a prison? Are you going to build a prison? And it was because of the work he did in 1710 or 1715. Like, it's actually when the story was happening. So I guess that was just a nice little touch by Clarke. I really liked it. Yeah, so I really liked that detail.
Yes, it was good.
So yeah, I wanted to say that.
All right, okay. And our random story was Mr. Simonelli or the Fairy Widower.
Yes.
Now, this one, it has humorous elements in it, but overall it's a much darker story than the other two.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say, do you think?
I think so, because at the beginning, when it's just Mr. Simonelli and it's like describing what is happening with his life, he's this, do you use this word bachelor, like a man who is not married yet and he would like to be? So he is a sort of he's a priest.
Well, at the start of the story, he's a scholar, and he sort of, at the start, he's kind of like says to himself, God, I'm broke. I'm either going to have to become a vicar or get married. So he decides to become a vicar.
That's the funny part. Like, the beginning is really funny, how he's going about thinking about his like prospects of future. Like, so I will have to do something with myself.
Yeah.
And this is what I wanted to quote. Like, he is thinking of like the pros and cons of being married. Like, obviously he would like to still continue being focused on the studies, and he likes to be like with his nose in the books, and he really likes that sort of life in silence and sort of secluded. But also he would like to get married, and because that would bring him some money and a home, you know. So he's contemplating. And so I'm quoting, I have been too long accustomed to the rigorous of scholarly debate to feel much enthusiasm for female conversation, no more to refresh my soul in the company of Aquinas, Aristophanes, Euclid, and Avicenna, but instead to pass my hours attending to a discourse upon the merits of a bonnet trimmed with coquelicot ribbons. Coquelicot is a new word to me. End of quote. I found this extremely hilarious.
Yeah, there's no escaping the fact that Mr. Simonelli is a bit of a dick throughout a lot of the story. But we do find out why.
Oh, yeah. Oh, let's go on.
So, a brief summation of the story then. Mr. Simonelli is a scholar. I can't remember. Did they say what university he was at? Was it Cambridge or Oxford or something like that? I can't remember.
Let me see if I made a note. I don't, with Cambridge.
Yeah, I thought Cambridge too, but I'm not sure. Anyway, he's a scholar. He's at university, and as we said, he's desperate for money, so he's either thinking of becoming a vicar or getting married. Yeah. When his nemesis, his arch enemy, Dr. Prothero, says to him, I've got the perfect situation for you. There's a town in Derbyshire which needs a vicar, and you could do that. It would be brilliant. And he decides, okay, I'll do that. So off he goes. On his journey upwards, he comes across a couple of people who are saying that one of the person's wife is very ill. She's trying to give birth and she's in great distress. No doctors can be found. And Mr. Simonelli, or Reverend Simonelli, Reverend Simonelli, we should call him now, bizarrely says, well, I've written a few letters to an eminent physician, therefore I probably know what to do, so I'll come with you and help out.
I read some books.
Well, all right, okay. They're like, yeah, okay. So they go off to this strange house called All Hope. Mr. Simonelli, Reverend Simonelli, pardon me, does manage to successfully birth a child, but unfortunately the mother dies during the process.
Because he pushes his whole arms into her and turns the baby around, and it's like, oh, just like do this. Oh, what can we do? She's dead.
So he then goes downstairs to tell the husband that unfortunately his wife's died, and the husband says, oh, I'm sure you did all you could. No problem.
Yeah, He was like just sitting there reading a book, like, oh, okay, it's fine.
Not a problem. So it turns out the husband's name is John Hollyshoes, and the name Hollyshoes immediately tells us that John is Fae. He's a fairy. He has a manservant called Dando, and I'm not entirely sure whether Dando is Fae himself or human or a sprite. I'm not 100% clear on that.
I think it was left to our imagination.
Anyway, so Mr. Reverend Simonelli, resumes his journey, gets to the village where he's due to be the rector, and assumes his duties as the rector. Along the way, he meets Mrs. Gathercole, the widow of the deceased Admiral Gathercole, and her sister-in-law, Mrs. Edmund. And they have 5 daughters. They don't have. Mrs. Gathercole has 5 daughters: Isabella, Marianne, Henrietta, Kitty, and Jane. So, the first event that happens is we are told that a young girl by the name of Dido Putifer, great name.
Yes. I kept saying dildo.
Dildo.
My head. I can't just... Sorry.
Dildo Putifer.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, yeah.
She's gone missing. That's all we're told. Reverend Simonelli, not being the brightest spark in the box, doesn't immediately put 2 and 2 together. Like everybody else in the entire world probably would.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like the description of poor Dido.
Yeah.
She has a baby and she is breastfeeding the baby. That is the first information
what can have happened to Dido?
I don't know. Like, wasn't it another baby that needed some
feeding? Wasn't there another baby just recently born? Mr. Simonelli?
I don't know.
I'm going to stop calling him Mr. His full name is Alessandro
Simonelli.
Yeah. So also when Alessandro mentions John Hollyshoes to the people within the village, no one's heard of him. They don't know who he is. They've got no idea. So the 5 daughters ingratiate themselves with Alessandro, and he becomes their tutor and teaches them different things depending on what it is they want to do. In the meantime, there's this secondary story going on where John Hollyshoes calls Alessandro back to All Hope, which is the name of the house where John lives, and reveals to him that he, Alessandro, is actually John's cousin.
Yeah, like we are actually...
Yeah, we're related.
Like, family, we are related. And he's like, no way. You know what? I think because he didn't, like, poor Dido. I need to be careful with that name.
You can call it dildo if you want.
Yeah, like the lost dildo. Okay. Sorry, no, breastfeeding dildo is not a good thing, I don't think. Anyway, so when we find her in the story, and she is, yes, of course, she's imprisoned in this All Hope house.
Yeah.
She is tied to or chained to a chair with this newborn baby of what was his name, John Hollyshoes. But she is in this sort of like spell, under a spell. She sees everything beautiful around herself. She thinks she's wearing like golden dress and everything is beautiful and clean. The baby is the most beautiful baby ever born, and she is the happiest person ever to be able to be with this baby and feed him. So she's under a spell. And I think why John actually was able to detect that, okay, so this Alessandro guy keeps to be sort of like, he was not under the spell.
Yeah, he wasn't taken in by
it. Was like, what was wrong with you? So you can actually see this? Interesting. Because he asked about the baby when he was born.
He asked about the baby,
was like,
yeah.
There was this cloth, and he was like, no, you need to put the baby in like a really clean cloth. Like, what are you doing? This is filthy. And the John guy was like, interesting.
Yeah.
So you see the cloth.
That's why I wasn't sure about the status of Dando, because he immediately turns to Dando at that point and says, Dando, what do you see? Do you see that cloth as filthy dirty or a rich, luxurious blanket?
Yeah. That is true.
That's why I wasn't quite sure whether he was Fae himself or just an ordinary human.
I don't even know whether he replied to that.
No, I can't. But so anyway, it turns out that Alessandro Simonelli, Dad, was Thomas Fairwood, fairy, dead cousin to John Hollyshoes. So Alessandro frees Dido and they try to escape through the woods. They climb a tree to escape from John and Dando. And
because that's what you do.
That's what you do, I guess. Climb a tree.
Climb a tree.
And John has also said that he wants to take a new wife, and he spotted 5 lovely ladies in the nearest village. And Alessandro, at this time, he does actually twig. He does get the connection and realises that he has to protect these 5 daughters. So he proposes to all of them and swears to secrecy.
They don't know about it. Like each of them is like, okay, we need to keep this really secret. So he goes to each of them and promises them marriage.
Yeah.
And they all almost swear okay, I will not tell anybody, not even my sisters.
The reason being that Alessandro reasons that if John approaches one of them and asks them to marry him, that woman can legitimately say, "I'm sorry, I'm already engaged." Yeah. Which is, I guess, quite a good plan. But anyway, so Alessandro and Dido are fleeing through the woods, and John and Dando catch up to them. They start to do some fairy magic on Alessandro and Dido. Alessandro manages to copy a kind of hand signal that he'd seen John Hollyshoes do earlier in the story, and it ends up killing John.
Yes.
So everything's all right with the world. And then it gets out that Alessandro has proposed to each of the 5 daughters, and there is uproar, of a completely non-fairy related kind. The poor man has to flee for his life.
I imagine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
it is. It does have moments of humour, but it is. I mean, the kind of the sort of the kidnapping and the sort of the abuse of Dido and the sort of
the wife.
The wife dying.
Died like that.
Yeah.
Oh. But there are moments of real good humor. For example, how the Mr. Simonelli never was riding a horse before. So they just put him on a horse and he was like, oh, actually, I can do this.
Yeah.
Because it was the spell, obviously.
The
but then
glamour.
He's trying to repeat this thing and he wants to be a little bit showing off in front of the girls.
No need, I can do this. I'm an expert.
Yeah. And he is unable to, absolutely. And they are looking at him like everything is quiet. I think even the birds were silent, what is happening? And he's like, no, I can do it. I did it before. I can do it. I absolutely can just ride a horse because I read it in the books. I think it's mocking a little bit, or the scholar.
Yeah, she has got, Susanna Clarke has got this really great skill of making a person's character obvious in a very short space of time.
Yes.
I mean, you suspect immediately, not long into the short story, that Alessandro is a bit of a dick. And, just from his reactions to things, he's an egocentric arsehole. And it turns out that he's an egocentric arsehole because he's a fairy, but we didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, and he didn't know probably.
No.
That is kind of curious to me because I think fairies would know they have some superpowers or, so...
Well, maybe because he was raised by humans and he never...
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe fairies have to go to fairy school to learn how to do fairy magic. Who knows?
I don't think it's Cambridge then.
No. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So that's all 3 stories.
Yeah. They're very good stories. They're not long. None of them are long. They are based in the same universe as Jonathon Strange and Mr. Norrell, the much longer novel. But it is not necessary to have read that novel before you read the stories.
Yeah, and we will talk to you soon.
Yeah, the next one is going to be a full episode with all 4 of us. Okay, well, we'll see you next time. Okay. Until then, I've been Leraje. Hail Satan.
Ligeia. Hail Satan. Bye-bye.